In this video, we will have a look at Baruch de Spinoza's take on the unity of everything. For this, we will cover his book Ethics demonstrated in geometrical order. What does unity of everything mean? Well, have you ever wondered if there is one thing that carries and constitutes everything around us? Like one universal rule or principle or entity, or more contemporary speaking, a theory of everything? Well then, essentially, you have asked the same question Spinoza asked. Right now we have two ways to go about this, one being easier, the other being more difficult. In the easy answer, I will give you a broad overview of Spinoza's points and their implications. And in the difficult answer, we will dive deeper and look how Spinoza argues his points. First, the easy one. Spinoza unifies everything there is into one all-encompassing substance. Everything we think, see, and will think or see is one modification of the very same substance, a product, so to speak, of the substance. And these modifications correspond to the attributes of the substance. Spinoza construes it like this: the substance is affecting its own attributes, and this affection of the attributes of the substance results in modifications. And these modifications of the substance are everything, from us to cats to our thoughts about justice, just everything. So this substance is causing itself and it is causing everything else, which is why for Spinoza the substance is ultimately God, or as he also puts it synonymously, nature. Deus sive naturam, meaning God or nature. Nature from the Latin nasci means to arise or to originate. So in the original sense of the word nature, the nature around us is already that which originates everything. Thus, in Spinoza's context, nature is just another word for the substance or for God, because all three, substance, nature or God, are the cause for everything there is for Spinoza. Against this backdrop of the substance being nature, Spinoza also calls the substance natura naturans, meaning from the Latin, the originating origin, whereas the things in the world, from cats to our thoughts, are the natura naturata, meaning the originated things of the origin. So in other words, there is the eternal activity that produces, natura naturans, and the things that it produces, natura naturata. Now this is also why Spinoza was labeled as being a pantheist, or as someone who is proposing pantheism, from the Greek pan, meaning everything, and theos, meaning God, because for Spinoza everything there is God. And it is this pantheistic context which also explains why this book is called Ethics. It is ethical because with this book Spinoza wants to show us our place in the world. Later in his book he argues that all our emotions, thoughts, and sentiments, ambitions, and even what we hold as good or bad are just modifications of the substance. This insight that Spinoza wants to give us is what he calls in Latin amor intellectualis Dei, meaning intellectual love for God. So with our intellectual insight, by reading Spinoza's Ethics, we kind of find peace in the troubles of our everyday life, because we know that everything we feel and see and are afraid of or whatever is just a modification of the substance. This kind of devotion to the eternal substance Spinoza also calls thinking about things from the viewpoint of eternity, or under the aspect of eternity, which means in Latin sub specie eternitatis. Now this theoretical outline of Spinoza is what is called a monistic theory, coming from Greek monas, meaning one or oneness, because everything is a modification of the one highest principle, the substance. This monistic theory has some important results and distinctions from a dualistic theory, which comes from the Latin dualis, meaning containing two. For example, normally when we see a cat, we tend to think that our perception of the cat is not identical with the cat that we see. For there is our subjective thought or perception of the cat, and there is the object cat lying out there in the sun or doing other important stuff, independent from us thinking or perceiving it. Thus we hold that our thought or perception of the cat and the cat are fundamentally different from one another. And this is a dualistic conception. Now in a monistic theory like Spinoza's, the thought of the cat and the actual cat are just modifications of one and the same substance. Thus, in a way, they are not really distinct. They are for sure different, but they are different because there are different modifications of one and the same substance. So, our thought of the cat and the actual cat are the same in respect of being modifications of the same substance. This has some peculiar results, because me seeing the cat is actually me as a modification of the substance seeing the cat. And because the cat is also a modification of the substance, it follows that me seeing the cat is actually the substance seeing itself, because the cat is a modification of the substance and I am a modification of the substance. And when I am seeing the cat, it is actually the substance seeing itself. So thus far, you might have been sympathetic to Spinoza's claims or not at all. And because of that, let's sort things out in more detail by turning to the more specific and difficult part and look how Spinoza argues his point and what is his method. So we know that Spinoza claims that everything there is caused and originated by the substance or nature or God. However, why? Why is there a substance to begin with? Why is there God? Why is there an originating nature that originates everything? How does he prove this philosophically? And for this, first we have to look at his method, for the what he calls geometrical method. Because when you think about his title, it's called Ethics Demonstrated in Geometrical Order. So why geometrical? Well, Spinoza follows Euclid, an ancient geometrician, in his way how he structured and went about geometry. And following this conceptual structure of Euclid, Spinoza proceeds as follows. First, Spinoza posits definitions, definitiones, which are not under discussion. And in these definitions, Spinoza defines certain concepts he uses like substance or attributes or modification. Second, he then posits axioms, axiomata, which are also not under discussion. But unlike the definitions, the axioms are broader and don't define specific concepts, but rather the correlation between those specific concepts. And thirdly, Spinoza concludes all this with his philosophical deduction and reasoning by positing propositions, propositio, which he then seeks to prove, demonstratio. And he seeks to prove these propositions by referring back to the definitions and the axioms he gave before. Now, naturally, this evolves and becomes more and more complex over time, because once a proposition is proven, Spinoza uses these proven propositions to prove another proposition. In the course of this, we get a more and more interconnected web or tree, if you like. Everything prior serves to ground and prove the following. And once a following proposition is proven, it becomes part of the prior pool, so to speak, Spinoza can draw from to prove another proposition. So for the end of this video, let's take an actual proposition, namely proposition 7 of book 1. It pertains to the nature of substance to exist. Now, Spinoza tries to prove this proposition by firstly referring back to his prior proposition 6, because in that he already proved that the substance cannot be caused by another substance. Secondly, he goes on with this proof by referring back to definition 1, which says, I understand that to be cause of itself whose essence involves existence, or whose nature cannot be conceived unless existing. So, to sum this proof of proposition 7 up, why does the substance exist? Well, 3 steps. First, Spinoza proved prior that the substance cannot be caused by another substance. Then secondly, and according to definition 1, if something is not caused by something else, then it is caused by itself. And lastly, it follows, also according to definition 1, that which is caused by itself exists necessarily. Thus, in conclusion, the substance exists. So I hope this gave you a little insight into Spinoza's broader claims and the way he argues these claims. Of course, and as always, there is a lot to ask and critique about Spinoza, but also, as always, I happily leave that to the comments. And if you want to see more like this, please like and subscribe. Thanks for sticking around and see you in the next video.